Welcome to Stupid Builds, where I will show you some stupid builds. Some of these builds are our own creations, some are from a livestream chat, but all of them are stupid because of how fun they secretly are. Outbreak Perfected has returned to us, and after a deluge of horny posting after the second Rolkin Pantheon, I need something to clear my head that isn't measured in gauge. This build for Solar Hunter started off as a run-of-the-mill PvP suggestion for bad juju. The core idea was to keep a constant buff of Radiant using the Frosties. But as many of you are undoubtedly aware, a polished turd is still a turd. While I love the idea of bad juju, practically speaking it lacks the necessary punch to properly silence the existential crisis I hide from by playing this funny space game. Out of curiosity, we pivoted onto the Outbreak. And then a thought occurred to me. One of those thoughts that, for a brief moment, both makes you feel like a genius and an idiot simultaneously. That type of thought that takes the proper mixture of moron and brilliance to obtain. In other words, Elon Musk on a Tuesday. As it turns out, any weapon damage buff to the Outbreak benefits its nanite damage. Of course, I knew this intuitively, but never have I seen anyone call attention to it. Perhaps I am blissfully ignorant, but you shall not be, and accordingly, this Dionysian discovery gave birth to a new multi-purpose Outbreak-centric build. The Outbreak's greatest strength is its ability to adequately handle nearly every type of combat in the game. Its AoE and primary weapon uptime allows it to comfortably chew through adds. Its bonus nanite damage on repeated hits makes it semi-valuable as a DPS tool on the beefier targets. And lastly, its good stats and lightweight frame makes it a sturdy choice for PvP. While it rarely excels in any of these areas, its ability to place consistently above par for each has always kept it relevant. A lot of you could learn a thing or two from the Outbreak. It doesn't obsess on any one thing, but rather understands the value of having a balanced life. Outbreak is now even more in the nearsighted eyes of the player base with its latest addition to the crafting pool. Which goes without saying, because why else would you all have to be here and put up with me right now? For our build, we want to keep as much bonus damage uptime for Outbreak as we can. Frosties were tolerable, but lacking that sauce that made it feel truly magical. Instead, we ran the Shard of Galanor with a lightweight knife. This choice might seem poor at first, but consider the following. Hunters can very easily loop infinite knives from their aspect, knock 'em down. Lightweight knives allots us the freedom to open up our fragment slots so we need not immediately click Ember of Torches like a teenage boy clicks on obviously horny bait Discord links. Please stop getting hacked. Our moderation team is overworked and completely unpaid to deal with your bullshit! With our now infinite uptime of Radiance, we can lean into Solar's healing buffs with a healing grenade and then keep the buffs rolling with Ember of Empyrean and Ember of Solace. You may be tempted to think this build is incapable of playing into the brain-tickling explosions Solar offers, but peer over with me at the Artifact mod. Kindling Trigger applies Scorch to unscorched combatants while Radiant, and Rays of Precision makes final blows while Radiant cause ignitions. With all of these at once, we can have our cake and eat it too. Well, maybe not you. You look like you could probably wane off the cake for about a year or two. But this build can give us access to as many of the explosions as we desire. We can chain these Dollar Tree IEDs with the classic Ember of Char and Ember of Eruption. We even gave ourselves enough free space to pivot the build onto more consistent Radiance with torches, or even having a little fun and using Gunpowder Gamble. All this happens while giving us a rapid-fire super with better burst damage than a tether with the Shards of Galanor, and allowing us to use whatever heavy we desire and keeping our Outbreak on standby if we run out of ammo. All this, as you are seeing, is directly transferable into a PvP arena. A skilled hand will be able to acquire supers significantly faster than even Bubbles or Wills. Our weapons will pivot with PvP or PvE. For PvP, use the Heliocentric with the heal clip and damage perk if you have one. For PvE, look for a high-value special weapon, preferably with incandescent. Heavy is your choice, and armor mods will be the usual allotment of mods, just make sure to lean into the Outbreak for absurdly easy damage. Any build that can be both PvP and PvE ready is a good build. 6 Anopheles mosquitoes out of 9 Sony controversies. Aiming, is for poor people. I don't want to have to calculate my next move like some kind of Warlock nerd. I simply want to be able to tape down the trigger and watch the game play itself. If accuracy by volume is also your creed, then may I suggest a modern take on a classic Titan build. Sweet Business must have the strongest doesn't-give-a-shit vibes of every weapon in the Traveler's Sandbox. With its 150 rounds of persuasive percussions that speed up the longer it's held, it, like the Outbreak, holds a place as always being some measure of adequate for nearly every situation. The best business partner for this exchange of bullets and damage is the Actium War Rig, an exotic that has barely seen any updates since its conception. It still does an excellent job of helping any non-believers to find the intersection between fuck around and find out. Last week, we had a build that promised practically mindless ad control. Well, I should have known that a Titan would take that throne. Despite our IQ dropping with every bullet fired, we still make a few smart decisions from the outset to bring this build up to par with a more current sandbox. Our first optimization is a rally barricade. This increased our weapon's capabilities while giving us a faster reload if we were ever to need it. Secondly, we run a strong arc weapon with Volt Shot. I use my indebted kindness, but find what works best per whatever's available to you. My heavy was an interesting one, as obviously I want to spend as little time away from my fully automated ranged meat grinder as possible, and had this arc rocket with bipod and reconstruction. This gave me a 4-round chamber rocket for a quick salvo of deletion before returning to the warm embrace of 10 overheating rotating barrels. For aspects, run Touch of Thunder and Knockout. Knockout gives us some close-quarter combat tools for any enemy dumb enough to get within the beating the shit out of range of a Titan. For fragments, I was told to try Beacons, Shock, Resistance, and Amplitude. And lastly, for our grenade, we ran the Flashbang. While this does hurt our potential damage output, its crowd control and champion utility is almost unparalleled. Will this build be the absolute most optimal build you've ever seen? Of course not. Will you cackle like a demon while pouring out a river of lead from this stupid build? Absolutely. 204 apes out of 250 escapes from Tarkov. So I save builds I run from livestream chat, then sit down with a Word document open and decide what builds I want to feature. For Warlocks, this was exceptionally difficult because my livestream audience seems to be filled with book-loving Warlock nerds. As it should be. But with the season reset right around the corner, which will make a few of these builds outdated or obsolete, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to rapid fire through every build and give them a rating out of 5. If you end up liking this more attention deficit style, let me know in the comments. And while you are there, why not press that shiny like and subscribe button while you're at it? Okay, here we go. PvE, Agger Scepter, Mantle of Battle Harmony, for frequent looping boosted Aggers with superb crowd control. 3.5 Archibolds as it lacks an edge in DPS. PvP, Chromatic Fire and Outbreak on Solar Warlock. Close to a build we have featured in the past, but hard to find value in PvP due to its multiple situational requirements. Probably works decently in PvE. 2.5 Archibolds. PvP, Outbreak and Osteomancy Gloves on Stasis Warlock. Turns out 2 good exotics run together makes for a good build. Who would have thought? Lacks a certain synergistic flavor that pushes it above an average tier for me, but not a bad build at all. If I had to pick one build to feature for Warlocks, this would have been it. 4 Archibolds. PvP, Taraba and Secant Filaments on Devour-focused Voidlock. Despite my initial hesitations with the seemingly flavor-contradictory build, this ended up being a fantastically fun build to play. Devour is exactly what Taraba needs to go from scary to horrifying. Taraba itself likely needs some changes to ever see it in higher tiers. Normally this wouldn't stop us from using it, but Taraba's restrictions on swapping really hurts any build flow with it. Still hilariously powerful to use and doesn't require every star to align. 4 Archibolds. PvP, Touch of Malice and Secant Filaments on Devourlock. Similar vibe the last build had with more range. Finally got this funny scout because of Pantheon. Thanks, Bungie. Build is arguably the best ranged build in the Crucible, pound for pound, and its flavor and synergy is terrific. 4.5 Archibolds. Well, there you have them. Hope these helped. Don't forget to subscribe. Bless your faces, and deuces.